I'm so thrilled to be here with you today. I'm hoping we can walk away from this summit energized and inspired to continue to pursue our passions. Let's be authentic doers and unapologetic dreamers. We need more of this right now, more than ever. My name is Amita Mehta, and I am the founder and CEO of Amita Mehta Possible. I decided to take my own advice to be bold, live life on my terms, and I launched the platform using my professional and personal experiences from the past 2 decades to inspire others to realize their fullest potential. On the one hand, I'm so excited to elevate us to do the heavy lifting necessary to make our workplaces more diverse and inclusive. I've been working in and around the D&I space for decades, and I've seen the conversation really evolve. But I myself, spoiler alert, am an Indian woman who has fought my own battles to be heard and seen at work and in life. I'm hoping what you'll hear in this segment is something unique, a perspective you haven't heard before. However, I have a confession. The words diversity and inclusion have gotten worn out, beat up, and overused, and I think it's time for us to breathe new life into this conversation. In many cases, companies think of diversity as affirmative action or box checking, and in my nearly 25 years in financial services and executive leadership, I found it to be everything but that. So what I want to talk and challenge you to really think about is, what is diversity? Why does it matter? What does it mean to include and be included? From my vantage point, there are 3 essential things we must do to be strong leaders running successful businesses and to ensure we play a critical role in shaping our careers and our industries. I'll walk you through those in a minute, but first let's just get right to it. What is diversity inclusion today? And what does it mean in the workplace? You'll find that some people are calling it inclusion and diversity, some people call it something else entirely, but I say let's skip all the semantics and get to the root. What we're really talking about is about diverse thinking, perspectives, experiences, work styles, cultural backgrounds. It doesn't mean necessarily putting one black person, one white person, one Asian, one Hispanic, one female, one LGBTQ candidate on your interview slate. I think we've gotten caught up in a numbers game. From a business standpoint, diversity matters for 2 reasons. First is that diverse thinking leads to better and more productive solutions and outcomes. It increases the bottom line. Last summer, Forbes published a study by the Boston Consulting Group that looked at 1,700 companies across 8 countries with varying industries and company sizes. They found that companies with more diverse management teams had 19% higher revenue due to innovation. Now, we can find dozens and dozens of studies like this, and you may also be able to use your search engine to find studies to the contrary. But the point is clear. Diversity makes money, and it makes us better equipped to do our jobs and serve our customers. One reason for that is when our teams are more reflective of our customer and client base, we're able to relate to their perspectives and offer solutions that meet their needs. How do we achieve that? It often means casting the broadest net to find talent and being patient enough to identify the right person. You don't want to have a homogeneous team when the community you serve is truly a melting pot. That minimizes your opportunity to make money. Now, inclusion. Yes, we need to create inclusive climates where employees feel like they can bring their whole selves to work and feel comfortable to speak their minds. When people feel like they don't have to hide themselves or adhere to a corporate persona, they're more productive, creative, and innovative. But that's just one side of the coin. It's also about us. Are we making sure that we're counted, seen, and heard? So let me tell you a story. A personal story. One where I found myself in crisis. During a time where, from the outside looking in, people would have thought that I had a thriving career, a thriving life, and when in reality, I was hiding a secret of the fact that I was gay. And it was terrifying. To the point that I had built such a successful career, leveraged all the resources, all the coaching along the way, only to realize that I could be facing discrimination. My safety could be at risk. My livelihood, everything that I had worked so hard for, was going to be at stake. And people were recognizing that I was withdrawing. I was less productive. People were feeling this climate of lack of trust from me. And leadership began to recognize this. And when in reality people were thinking that I had some ulterior motive, that I'm focused just on the work and that I'm not worried about the people that I work with. Instead, I was terrified that people would find out my secret and all that I worked for would come crashing down, all my relationships would end. And what I recognized was I was facing a turning point in my life and my career, and realized, wow, I need to be part of the solution here and lean into the fact of who I was and face it head on. And that's when I recognized the type of leader I wanted to be, because I was able to bring my whole self to work. And that's why diversity and inclusion is so important, because sometimes you don't recognize what people are going through. In my instance, it was something personally profound about my sexual orientation. In other cases, in other situations, it could be about taking care of an elderly parent, a child's sickness. Giving people the chance to be authentic allows us all to be successful. That's why it matters. So let's get into it. I've narrowed it down to 3 tangible things to think about where we can really be part of the solution. I'm a big believer in being the CEO of your own life, whether it's owning your own business or working for a corporate brand. Let's stop putting it on others. We can play a pivotal part in changing work culture. So number 1, take an honest look around. Who's on your team? As a person showing up to work each day, ask yourself, am I feeling productive? Am I engaged? Do I want to share my ideas and opinions? And do I feel like those will be well received? Bottom line, can I bring my whole self to work? Are there opportunities for me to advance and to use my talents and skill sets effectively? And on the other hand, if you're a leader, don't forget that it starts from the top. Are you practicing what you preach? Are you truly invested in building diverse teams? And are you creating a climate where your team feels like they can contribute? Boil it down to the simplest question. Are your employees invested and happy to be there? That will tell you whether you created an inclusive climate that's conducive to innovating. If the answers are yes, that's great. If the answers to some of those questions are either no or we can do better, then let's work to become part of the solution. That may mean making changes to your team. If you're a team member, it may mean using your voice to alert leadership to the truth about what it feels like to be in the trenches. Don't wait till the annual review process or anonymous surveys to be heard. Own your feelings. Put your name and your voice behind constructive and factual feedback. Speak frankly and openly during your one-on-one conversations with leadership. If you feel like your opinions aren't respected or you're working overtime to conform, then you may not be in the right spot anyway. When you lead with conviction instead of fear, people will want you on their team. This leads me to point number 2. Use your influence to build bridges for others. You may be thinking, yeah, that sounds a little Pollyanna or cliche, but this isn't an altruistic gesture. This isn't about being popular or well-liked. This is about lifting others and being part of something bigger than you. Yes, the numbers are still pretty bleak in terms of high-ranking women in the top C-suite spots, and that can be intimidating. Last year was particularly abysmal. Again, according to Fortune, the number of women CEOs at Fortune 500 companies dropped from 2017 to 2018, down to 24 from its previous high of 32. In other words, the number of female chief executives dropped by 25% in 1 year. And now we just make up under 5% of all CEOs. Yikes, I know. With so few women at the top, we can tend to feel the need to compete with each other. It can feel counterproductive to try to promote each other, but in my experience, it works the opposite way. When we promote each other, we create opportunities and bridges for ourselves. All ships rise. Besides, what do you want your legacy to be? A cutthroat executive who clawed her way to the top? Or an authentic leader who advocated for the best and brightest women to have chances to thrive? So, how do you advocate or connect people? Well, mentoring is a great place to start. Offer a hand to that recent college graduate or the new person on your floor who recently returned from a stint home raising kids or even serving our country. Show them the ropes. Introduce them to people who can inspire and support their growth. Do the things that would have helped you now that you have the benefit of hindsight. Another way to support others is through sponsorship. It may sound the same, but it's different than mentorship in that you deliberately invest time and resources to promote someone's career success by broadening their network, introducing them to potential job opportunities, and backing them in projects. You become their champion, and you're supporting their advancement and goals. Third, and this one sometimes sounds simpler than it is to be an ally. That doesn't mean sitting with your gay friend at lunch, like me. It's bolder. When you hear something in the elevator that doesn't sound right, don't let it go. Use your voice. Let me give you an example. A group of us went out to lunch one day, and one of my peers complained about the stench of the ethnic food he had eaten, and he'd have to spend the rest of the day smelling like that in meetings. I quietly, without fanfare, followed him to his office. I privately shared that what he said was offensive. While he may not have meant ill intent, it was received that way. I seized a teachable moment, not to degrade or embarrass, and it worked. He was mortified, and I promise you he never made a comment like that again. I helped change his behavior, and that's how we all grow. But it's even more than that. Allies save lives. I know I alluded to the period in my own life when I was hiding my sexual orientation. Without my twin brother, who was my biggest ally, I may have imploded my career and my life. You have no idea what kind of difference you can make when you simply demonstrate curiosity, vulnerability, or personally engage with your peers. Ladies, let's be honest. Without allies who are truly willing to advocate for us, we will never get where we're trying to go. Okay, so we're on the home stretch. Number 3, leaders aren't afraid to share their stories, and that's really important. Even as recently as a year ago, I was afraid to share personal aspects of my life, even after I saw how powerful it could be. Long after I told my story about being a Ugandan refugee and coming out, I was worried about telling coworkers when I was sick and had to take time off work. We're always afraid to show weakness, worried about what we may lose and the footing that we work so hard to gain. However, I did it. I left myself be vulnerable. My staff, my coworkers, even leadership leaned into me, supported me, and helped me thrive. I've learned that true leaders aren't afraid to be vulnerable. It helps us trust leaders and makes us want to work for them. When we see ourselves in our leaders, we want to work harder. Also, know that we all have a story to tell. Even if you aren't fighting an illness or training for a marathon, we all have compelling and relatable stories to share that can impact others in ways we can never imagine. When I told my story in a magazine recently, I received a letter from a woman whose daughter had recently come out to her. She shared that she was so fearful about her daughter's future and the lack of prospects, career and personal. And when she read my story, she felt infused with hope and had a new outlook on life. That's a big deal. Being able to offer hope to someone or just truly empathize with what they're going through can be hugely empowering. Now we understand what the crucial components of fostering diversity and inclusion are from my perspective. But just to be clear, D&I, when done right, are the keys to innovation. When you create a climate in which employees aren't afraid to fail, when they can be themselves and offer out-of-the-box ideas without feeling silly or that they're taking their career at risk, true innovation can happen. Thanks, and I cannot wait to engage in our conversation.